And this is the first time that we're doing something as a group that's public.
It feels so good to belong somewhere.
We can do what we do best, which is ask us some question and we'll see what comes out of us.
Welcome to this, for me, and I think for you guys as well, incredibly exciting moment in time. I still just so excited to have all of you on my screen together, because I've spoken to you individually but never all together. And as you were just saying before we started to click record, this is also, one of the first public appearances that you guys are making together in the Asian Existential Collective. And so this is why we're coming together in this moment to learn, what does that mean? What is this incredible space and project that you guys have created?
I think maybe Meg, you want to start because you're the person who instrumented this whole thing. It was in your mind, and then why don't you start?
Sure. I think I mentioned to you, Natalie, when we had our interview, this was what, 2 years ago. I said that I really want to bring existentialism into Asia or Southeast Asia. So this was part of my effort. I knew Vincent. Then Creepy, you reached out to me, and Krish reached out to me through NSPC as well. And I thought, like, you know what? I've got all these people. I'm not sure where this is gonna go. Let's just bring everybody together. And then I my only thought at that time, this was what, 1 year ago, right? My only thought at that time was, okay, what I can do is to bring everybody together, but I don't see myself as leading the group. I want to see where the group goes. So we had that one meeting, and that one meeting became 12 meetings, once every month.
I just found your first email to me, actually. That's what I would like to pick up. So
Email my email to you.
your first email to me, which is on the 20th December 2022. So it's not even as immediate, you see, as I had initially thought it was. What is immediate is intention building, which happened with you, Nat, because I wanted to say, remember before the interview and everything, I spoke to Natalie about I've been kind of isolating myself or keeping myself separate for a long period of time. And I need to get back into the fray. And what I would like to do is to have community. And that's where the conversation actually went to, why don't you speak with Mag or Allison? And like, oh no, I have spoken to Allison and I had done a call. But then that one-to-one thing, that thing converting into last year, was very much putting a call out into the wild and then having that call get picked up by Mag. Which is why I think Krish is absolutely correct in terms of like, oh yeah, you had the individual calls, but then you were like, why don't we do the collective call? And initially with an agenda, but then the agenda became us. There was no other agenda. That's what I would like to say about the beginnings of it, is that I realized the value of wanting communities showing up for community, and then the community builds itself around the showing up.
Yeah.
Instead of like being like, oh, I don't know where they are. Do you know what I mean?
What you want to add, Vincent or Krish?
I'd add that being based in Malaysia, no one has heard of existential. I mean, people know of clinical stuff, diagnosis, and CBT modalities akin to CBT, but existential, whilst I was searching for clinical placement, they told me, what is this? Sounds like a snake charmer peddling his snake oil. So I was like, okay. So, and then I kept seeing this Chinese looking lady that said, Dr. Magdalene Cheng, congratulations on the NSPC website. I'm like, who is this person? Maybe she has a placement opportunity for me, because Malaysia and Singapore is very much interlinked. And so it started from there, because I was also trying to figure out how to for lack of a better expression, channel the frustration of this whole 5-year doctorate of just literally Western philosophy, Western everything. And I'm not anti-Western at all, but my desire was very acute to understand how can I apply this back home.
Yeah.
Whether people may be westernized in terms of food and language, but in terms of daily approaches through the lenses of collective ways of being in the world, which is I am not myself. I am somebody's nephew, somebody's son, somebody's cousin, somebody. So it's a collective thing that, and the police, it has its policing negative side, but essentially, how do you apply this Heidegger? So I still don't know how to apply it. So therefore, when this opportunity came, I say, oh yeah, maybe it would be interesting to speak to somebody from collectively with people who are aware of existential trainings from the West, but live in the East. That's how it started for me.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Because I'm in the UK because of the doctorate, but then I'm in Malaysia, and then I still don't know. I didn't know at that time how to translate these theories and philosophy into practice.
Well, we
I think
helped.
all four of us are still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we helped.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. If anything, my acute sense of feeling isolated was balanced, I think, because particularly in the last 1 year.
Mm.
Because st being in this doctorate course, and I'm just about to finish, I had to balance between the angry non-white person harping on about X, Y, and Z in class. So I had to find a channel for it. So this 1.5 years, 1 year definitely helped for sure. Because I didn't have to explain things, the confusion I have from modules or seminars, my interaction with people within the context of existential modules, particularly in this training, I didn't have to explain. People just got it. Like when I was talking about aunts and uncles and the trauma, people just understood immediately what that meant. What are the characteristics attached to a very nosy uncle and aunt? And the trauma that comes with it, right? We've
Yeah.
had loads of conversations about that.
Yeah, we have it. I think it's the yeehaw is recorded somewhere, but um, yeah, that is all of that is exactly right.
And you really put into words that coming together has been a formation of a community, and these feelings of not being understood fully or having to go that extra mile to explain yourself, feeling isolated as a result of that. There's something about coming together, creating that community that dissolves that isolation and allows you to be having these thoughts and discussions and engagement with philosophies of existence in a very different way than when you're having to do that embedded in a predominantly white group or white syllabus, at least. And I hope we can also hear from you, Vincent, as well. But how important do you feel, each of you, how important is representation?
Ooh, that's my favorite topic. Where I am now, I think representation in regards to the context of the UK, where everything is a battle for semantics and who owns the semantics and what are the characteristics attached to a semantic. I think, in essence, that this is the balance that I've been trying to balance. The things that are an issue about my representation is placed upon me. I am forced to identify as X, Asian, Tamil, Malaysian, etc., etc. Whereas in Asia, in Southeast Asia, you're just Asian. It's very different. And so that is the nuanced thing that whilst there wasn't an agenda to come to, I just wanted to experience other individuals from Asia who have had the opportunity to train and read existentialism, yet operating in the Asian context with no battle. I found that fascinating. But then the starting point, and please correct me, everyone, the starting point was this, the entry point, but then we found that actually we have nothing in common in terms of we are such different people. Then we explored what is this being Asian? And therefore, I personally have concluded that the West needs me to identify in order for a Westerner to understand me.
I
I
don't
can't
need to, yeah, I
person.
don't need to self-identify for that. I think, Vincent, do you remember when we had first met that you had mentioned something similar in contrast to the Spanish identity?
Well, was it when I said that there's decentralization and regionality in a sense, right? It's the idea that as far as my identity is concerned, being a Filipino, and in my experience of being Filipino, um, as a people, there's more homogeneity in terms of representation. It only comes up in my experience when it comes to regional differences, right? But as far as representation for me, it was still somewhat isolating precisely because of existentialism as a methodology for psychology and therapy. That for me was the representation that I was missing, right? And that's what led me to pursue really, again, having a community, or at least an attempt not to feel too isolated, because as I was saying in our first conversation, it felt very lonely, feeling like I'm the only one doing this where I am, right? Right. And having to, again, having to go the extra mile to have someone understand what you're saying, having to um explain more about uh what you're talking about, and sometimes them looking at you like you're talking about something so far out, or um sometimes I feel like I'm crazy trying to elaborate on certain things, because again, um having conversations with people who understand, I take it for granted, right? And having a conversation with people who don't necessarily get it from uh from a deeper perspective, I find myself having to try harder, and having to do that a lot uh sometimes feels exhausting. So when I had conversations with all of you, you know and in the again, in that span of the first few meetings, I specifically articulated, like, it feels so good to belong somewhere. And I guess that's what it really was, right? Having the space without having to think about, okay, where is this going and what's going to happen. It's just there, and having the, I guess, the openness and the acceptance of the uncertainty to see what happens. And now we're here, and this is what's happening.
I
And
just want to add that, that sense of belonging, but Krish also says that, our Asianness is just our entry point, but we get so different. To give an example was the conversation. I think we had two conversations about passports because we were talking about where should we be meeting, for our retreat and even coming, going to Japan. some of them, right, their passports are not as strong, so they need to get visas. And then when I was listening to their stories or their lived experience of getting these visas and coming from Singapore where my passport is really strong, I don't need to think about visas. I felt like I felt that privilege, but I felt lonely there as well because I did not have that shared experience. I was listening to it for the first time. How difficult it was for Creepy You and Krish, for you guys to get visas to go overseas.
Yeah.
So yeah, this Asianness, there is a part of me, I think it's through this group that I feel like I went in feeling like I want us Asians to come together, but we are so different as Asians.
Different. I would just add that we are so different in terms of our approaches to daily life that is
Yeah.
intertwined with
Got it.
economics. Because essentially we are all the same, whether we are white, black, Asian, we're all the same. And I think when we say we are so different is the choices that we have to make based on what we have. You know, it comes the
And the hierarchies that we live within, which
yeah.
have
Yeah.
Like for example, Krupi and I mean, I grew up with Indian heritage, but having spoken to Krippy for a year, I realized I'm actually Malaysian. With my grandparents were from British India. They're not even from modern India. They're from British India. I may have some traits of uh, Indian heritage, particularly from the south, but essentially Krippy and I are such vast different people. But then in the outside world, they will just I will still get asked, "Are you from India?" You see.
Mm.
Oh, it'll be the same for me. Am I from China?
Correct. Yeah. So that's what I think it's the biggest highlight for me is the fact that people see what they see, and it'll be very interesting to see at the conference what people will perceive us as and who will perceive us as X, Y, and Z and what is their story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first questions that we asked together as a group in my notes is how do we define ourselves and how much does it impact us about how other people define us? So identity came in very quickly, not just from Asianness, but in general. And Vincent, when you were speaking, and also Mag, like this understanding that it was not sameness that we were looking for. It's not about sameness as much as it was about exploring an area and allowing the story of our respective areas to be as powerful, as colorful, as intentional as the ones that we've been reading, taught within, and sort of like the sort of the Asian centrism maybe for a while in our own respective ways.
But for example, the biggest thing, right? Here, I am always forced to define my sexuality. Oh, are you gay? Are you lesbian? Are you this? Are you trans? Are you? Whereas I always explain to people in Asia, the approach is, whilst they are still very much intact, the British law, the 372A, I think, the British legal system that was left behind, and that's incorporated in many countries' protocols, national protocols. Everyday living, no one has a need to define their sexuality because sexuality is private and it's your thing. Whereas here, sexuality is public for some reason. You're forced to define yourself. So we've had this discussion before. I feel that, for example, Vincent, I didn't have to explain my sexuality.
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
Yeah. So that's the kind of differences that has balanced my training right now, if that makes sense. Because of this group, it somehow managed to push me for another year to actually come to this end process. Because apart from that, it has always been theory.
Mm.
There is no application of practice in terms of tailor making it towards an individual's heritage, whatever it may be, whether it's sexuality, economics. And I think things are too summarized here, abbreviated. Everything is abbreviated. If it's not your name, it's the lump sum that you belong to. So here I belong to the A of the BAME. What does that even mean?
Mhm.
And the A is, as you can see here, the A here, can you help me define what A here is? But apparently I'm just an A out there. But at the same time, I'm supposed to hold it all in and not be the troublemaker. You see what I mean? That is the jux situation constantly as a training person in training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have dropped little crumbs here along the way. We've spoken about belonging. We've spoken about coming together. We've mentioned visas, plane tickets, conferences. So what is on the cards, guys? Tell us, tell us.
So Mag is confidence extraordinaire. I'm trying to getting to believe. And we already knew this, but it hits again that it's actually the first place that we're doing this is also in Asia, which is, I don't think, a complete coincidence, maybe intentionally aligned totally. We were supposed to meet for a sort of existential, residential,
Right, many times.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we
It was
yeah,
more of a retreat, right? Like we
yes.
were supposed to, it's like 1 year anniversary, let's meet each other in person finally. And we were trying to figure out where in Asia we're going to have this get together retreat, be with each other.
Hold on, wait, Vincent, let's rewind that. Before that, we wanted to do a panel. We wanted to share what we have been trying to, well, we weren't planning for it, but it just came up as we were talking. Like, whatever we're doing right now, we're just talking every month. I feel like, well, we felt that we should let somebody else see it as well. We always had some kind of idea floating around, but it always remained as an idea.
Yeah, and this one caught, I guess, Natalie, that's the way to
Yeah.
put it. This one caught, and it had been featuring for long enough. And I do think that it's something to do with legitimacy. We've spoken about that internally as well. Is that this was not about piloting our significance. It was about presenting the work that we've actually been doing. And that created a seriousness, like Vincent said as well, recently in a message about we were not just going to see what people may think. We were like very clear about what we've been doing, and we're able to match that. All of the limiting circumstances of the world still present themselves monetarily, time-wise, war-wise, grief-wise, everything still is. And yet within that, somehow Japan is happening. And that's like 2 weeks, more than just about 2 weeks away. And in a way, the moment we were like, this is something that we bring to the table, because as your, pure excitement and joy shows, this is actually something really important.
I have to
And
say, exactly 2 weeks later, that we're going to be meeting
exactly
for
2 weeks.
on
Okay,
this
there you
day.
We
That's
haven't
right.
rehearsed anything. We haven't rehearsed
Exactly.
anything. We don't have plans.
So we're-
Keeping it the same way we turn up, the Asian way. And so we're not rehearsing for the conference in Sapporo, Japan, in 2 weeks' time. I think we're
Hey, hold on,
presenting.
maybe we should explain to Natalie what is this conference about first.
Please go for that.
So this conference in Japan, it's run by this group called IAGP, International Association for Group
Process.
Psychotherapy. I have been wanting to go into group therapy for a long time. And this is the second conference this year, and I've been telling them, like, we that's what we have been doing, really, this group. We have just been processing. We do not come in with an agenda, we do not come in with a topic. We just spend time with each other for an hour and a half and see what comes up. So I say, I think what we should present is not well, it's partly existentialism, but it's this process that we have to share with each other, with others, right? And so that's what we're gonna be doing. We're just gonna be going there. It's a 3-hour workshop. we're gonna have these two panels of how many minutes? 30 minutes each. And we're just gonna do what we are used to doing and just have a conversation. But then because it's a workshop, so we also would like to hear from the participants how they experience us, right? And so these group processes, they mostly use psychoanalytic theories, and we are thinking like, how can we use existential theories to complement what they already know? And at the end, what we're thinking is really to hear from them, you know, from the participants about what, because they would have had a lot of experience in group therapy, to hear from them, how can we as a group, you know, further this what group process that we're having right now? Because we are also thinking, where are we going next? There are no plans.
On the 20th of August, on the first day at 9 o'clock at the conference, we will, I think the room is EY13, if I'm not mistaken, but it's on the first day of the conference at 9 a.m. in Sapporo. We will be experiencing us for the first time in person. I have no idea if I'm going to like any of them, but I will be Asian and not say anything until 10 days later, having processed it. But I mean, it would be great if people come and experience us. And I also think that it is also a hybrid, if I'm not mistaken. So people could experience us through that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
How beyond the conference, and obviously we'll put a link to the conference anywhere that we're putting this video, but beyond that, you know, this isn't just a community that you've created for the conference and then it's going to dissipate, I hope. I love the commitment that you've shown. I see this as something that's going to be really meaningful for many people for a long time. How can they find their way to you?
Ooh,
Good question.
We're
good
working on it.
question.
Um,
We're not there yet because
Via me for now, then. Via me for now, but
right, why are you for now? Maybe it will lead to a website, maybe it will lead to a collective database. I don't know. Depending on how the way I see it is, there are two processes happening. We're experiencing each other and leaving it completely open with no agenda. And then there is the other process where people are experiencing us as we are, whatever they take, whatever they see, whatever they experience. Now, the culmination of that can only be processed after this whole trip and everyone goes back to their individual countries and homes.
and then we do a call again, which
And then
hopefully
we'll do
Yeah.
a call
record.
again. And then we'll see. I think personally, I think that's where the growth and data will be for me, because it is a whole process culminating from online all the way to in person, almost like a research of its own. So then as a research process, we will hopefully talk about it. I mean, we will have to talk about it. I mean, I hope we will talk about it.
No, it would be natural. And then the third part being in witness to others.
And
If there is a practical way to say it, there have always been murmurations in the group about 2-3 types of things. It's been about, what could this be research? Could this be that people join it? Could this be that people replicate it? So regardless of what takes place, I feel like something or the other would happen. I think that the trust that has already been established, though, is that we're good with figuring out where it goes.
yeah, we are actually.
Yeah.
There is no forceful determination. That's what we now know as a fact. Everything else we don't know as a fact.
Yeah.
We actually
Yeah,
feel safe in this uncertainty. Like we're pretty open. Anything goes.
There is no person in charge here.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that's the most, the biggest takeaway for me for the last 14 months is that there is no agenda. There is no one in charge of me.
Well, for me, it's always just there's always an unfolding, right? That's the way I experience it. Like, you know, certain things just happen, and for some reason, we all catch it when it does.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing.
That's why I feel like it's we broke the hierarchy, Natalie. That's what happened.
it's so beautiful to witness this in real life, because you're not just talking about the theoretical idea of navigating your space organically without a leader, but just to watch you collaboratively hold the space for each other. It shows that you aren't just talking the talk, but you're living that way of life. And I think there's so much that people can take from that, whatever that might mean to their own lives, to live collaboratively and in harmony and in spontaneity. I can't believe that I'm here with you all, and I can't believe that you're all meeting in person. I don't want to take up so much more of your time, but before we very sadly close this meeting, is there any other thoughts or final words or messages that you guys wanted to share?
I'm counting on people having the same reaction as you, Natalie. So you better spread the word that everybody's got to react like that.
All on you now, Natalie. We're shifting the responsibility to you.
No.
You are
Tap
now.
into Dr. Fraser. No, tap into Dr. Fraser's colonial heritage. That should do some tricks.
No, like the wonder that you're experiencing is the wonder that we experience, is the wonder that we hope is resonating. That's all I'd like to say about that. Yeah.
My last word will be, let's see. It is what it is. Let's see.
But I am sitting with a lot of excitement.
I mean, yeah, the excitement is there, but I'm bracketing it, to use an existential term. I'm bracketing it because I don't want it to translate as a expectation of anything at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, for me, it's just, I'm going to openly experience you guys, right? And I'm going to sit with that and just be present to the entire experience. And as what Chris has said, it is what it is, and we'll see.
My expectation is, well, not expectations, I guess it's more like hope. I want to feel what it's like to have the same kind of conversation in person.
Yeah, and Krishna and I also had a very interesting process, and we are, always bringing ourselves and projecting ourselves forth into the world, and we do that through each other too. But somehow there is capacity for however differently that shows up, and nobody is determining that for anyone else, whilst being willing to see the fullness that the other person brings in whatever way that they do. And that's it. So you're basically in process with us. And so like you literally do a before and after.
By the way, you're the only human being who has witnessed this process.
Yeah.
That's the truth. There hasn't been anyone in this room. This is how we are, by the way. It goes on for at least 2.5 hours at a time.
Yeah.
One conversation goes this way, and then we bring it back. And I think the beauty is, here's the thing that I was processing the other day for my final ever assignment, and then I'll never have to do anything like that ever again. I was processing this. What is this? It's because this is the first time that I have been in a space where we don't have an enemy in order to be us. We haven't indulged in colonial bashing. We talked a lot about the colonial implication of hundreds of years on the human psyche, but we did not make the white man the enemy. We have not, nor will we pursue that agenda, because it's not about that. Because it's now about what can we do collectively for ourselves with no need for approval from historical people, particularly the historical people living in India, in Malaysia, in Singapore. Colonialism lives within people.
Thank you for taking this, for being such a gentle and attentive audience for us. I really appreciate
Could I just
that.
ask one question and then we stop recording, to Dr. Fraser? What is your biggest takeaway from a bunch of Asians. So what have you experienced? What's your biggest takeaway?
To be able to consistently show up for each other for 12 months, you know, this is not a tiny thing to do. And to be able to have, I'm can only imagine from the glimpse that I've had, but some very like moving, personally important and potentially quite sensitive conversations, to be able to say that in a way that is both truthful but also caring and respectful. I mean, this is rare. This is incredibly, incredibly rare. There's a feeling in this space that is, I feel incredibly, incredibly honored that you guys would feel that you wanted to share this with me, and that you felt comfortable to invite me into your little meeting, even just for this moment. Thank you. Honestly, this is a very special moment.